This episode is brought to you by Principles. Ray Dalio, legendary investor and New York Times best-selling author, wants to pass along his understanding of how countries go broke, because he believes the U.S. budget and debt situation needs to be addressed. To give you that knowledge, he has put the draft of his book, How Countries Go Broke, The Big Cycle, online for free. It's available now at economicprinciples.org.
Richard Nixon.
Well, I'm not a crook.
Ronald Reagan.
Tear down this wall.
George W. Bush.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you.
And Donald Trump.
And a friend of mine for a long time, he only likes politics. If you ask him about how are the Yankees doing, he has no interest. If you ask him almost anything, he likes politics, and he's a professional at the highest level. Roger Stone.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone. This is The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back. I'm Roger Stone, and you're tuned in to The Roger Stone Show, where we talk politics, news, history, food, style, and many times whatever you want to talk about when we open the phone lines. I am deeply disturbed by the continuing questions that seem to be emerging from Butler, Pennsylvania. We have recently learned that the Secret Service and local law enforcement fully aware that the alleged shooter, who they claim is a man named Thomas Matthew Crooks, was on the premises armed for 62 minutes, yet they neither informed President Trump or evacuated him from the location as the Secret Service protocols would require. We now know that the alleged shooter, who again the government claims to be Thomas Matthew Crooks, utilized a drone to do a surveillance and learn the layout of the rally location, at least 3 surveillances, yet the Secret Service repeatedly turned down officers from law enforcement for a drone assessment to secure the location. We've learned the alleged shooter was allowed to case the location menacingly, pacing around the compound ominously in the hours before the shooting took place. The alleged shooter was walking near the magnometers, those are the machines you have to walk through to search you for a firearm, so suspiciously that rally goers complained about him. We've all now, I think, seen the videos of people pointing out a shooter on the roof. There, don't you see him? The man on the roof, even though we have seen, because of the high-speed photography of a photographer, the bullet whizzing by Trump's head, and a rally attendee, Fireman Corey Comparatore, was murdered in the gunfire. We have lunatics trying to tell us that no bullet hit Donald Trump, that this whole thing is some kind of psyop. That is just sick. The man joining us now is someone who knows a lot about this subject. Larry Johnson is a former CIA officer and intelligence analyst, former planner and advisor to the U.S. State Department's Office of Counterterrorism. As an independent contractor, he's provided training for the U.S. military special ops community for over 24 years. Since its founding in 1998, Larry Johnson has been the managing partner of BERG, B-E-R-G, the Business Exposure Reduction Group, Associates, LLC, specializing in investigations into money laundering and other strategic issues. Larry, I've followed him for years at Continuum News. He is an unabashed truth teller, and I'm honored that he can join us today. Larry Johnson, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Thank you, Roger, for a very generous introduction.
I just continue to be confounded by what I see coming out of Butler, Pennsylvania. Additionally, the alleged shooter, who the government assures us is Thomas Matthew Crooks, was actually allegedly confronted on the rooftop by a local police officer who knew that he was armed but backed away and left the roof. allowing the alleged shooter to target President Trump. The state police alerted the Secret Service that the alleged shooter was on the rooftop with a rangefinder, even texted a picture of the man to a number that apparently was provided by who we believe to be a federal agent. Police also had eyes on 4 other suspicious-looking individuals. Senator Ron Johnson did say that a government briefing indicated to him that there may have been more than one shooter. Larry Johnson, what's going on here?
I just had a conversation with a retired Secret Service buddy of mine who was, he ran Ronald Reagan's detail after Reagan was shot. He also headed up the training division at one point in his career. And so he's still well plugged in. He agreed with me. This was an inside, deliberate attempt to kill Donald Trump. This was not a simple case of incompetence. The mistakes and errors made by Secret Service management up and down the chain of command cannot just solely be attributed to stupidity or just utter incompetence. This was there was an element of deliberate sabotage to this, and so this is I think it's incumbent that the pressure be continued. For example, the current deputy director that has been elevated to acting director, he was the guy in charge actually making the decisions about whether Donald Trump's group would get extra security beforehand. So now they put the fox in charge of guarding the hen house, and it's downright dangerous.
Seems to be the case. I mean, I've just learned that the detection canines, the dogs that are used who can smell the munitions, were not used that day. We also know that the sheriff's deputies for the county were not wearing their body cams. Inexplicable. All of these things seem to point to exactly what you said. I said, based on a conversation with an agent myself last June at the Turning Point USA event in Palm Beach, that I was told that requests for additional resources and manpower for the president's security had been routinely denied by the Department of Homeland Security. A spokesman for the Secret Service vehemently denied that in a written statement, only to walk it back and admit that, yes, Secretary Mayorkas had declined the request for more manpower, more personnel. Shockingly, I noticed in Minnesota that the officer who seemed to have trouble holstering her weapon as Donald Trump was being put in the car was on the detail last night in Minnesota. I'm almost virtually certain I saw that. I just find that hard to believe. In your opinion, Larry, do you think going forward, with the FBI now suggesting Donald Trump he should do no more outside rallies, which of course is his trademark and he's not going to eliminate, do you think that he can rely on the U.S. Secret Service to protect him?
No, I don't. And I think it's incumbent upon Trump to bring in a team of people who are experienced professionals, and many of them would be former Secret Service, but people who are actually squared away. You know, there are guys out there, ranging from even like Dan Bongino as an example, because Dan was a good agent in terms of running protective details, but Trump should not rely upon them, no more than he could rely upon the FBI. I mean, we've seen an FBI clown show this past week in the person of Christopher Wray. If you recall, during his testimony, he made two sort of inexcusable errors, and many people may think I'm exaggerating the one. First of all, he said that they discovered 8 cartridges next to the body of the suspected shooter. Now, understand, a cartridge is a fully intact piece of ammunition. A cartridge consists of 4 components. It has a bullet, a shell casing, a primer, and the gunpowder inside. That is a cartridge. What happens when you fire a cartridge, it ejects a shell casing. So here's the director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, saying they found 8 cartridges. I took it upon myself. I contacted public affairs at FBI headquarters, and they came back and said, yes, Wray was wrong. He's meant to say shell casing. So you get an amateur hour like that. But then, to compound it, his job is to talk about evidence and facts. But instead he says, I don't think Donald Trump was hit by a bullet. What? Based on what? What we know for a fact is that gunshots were fired at Donald Trump. And we have video evidence or photographic evidence of a bullet streaking past his head. So, I mean, it's just it underscores how politicized these people have become, and they are not to be trusted by anyone.
Sadly, I have to tell you that I predicted the attempted assassination on Donald Trump as early as 2018. Let's listen to this.
Welcome, everybody, to Conversations That Matter. I am your host, Alex Newman, senior editor at the New American Magazine. Back in late 2017, I interviewed Roger Stone, the legendary political operative. He was with Richard Nixon. He was with Ronald Reagan. He's been with Donald Trump, Senator Bob Dole. I mean, he's been right at the heart of American politics for generations. And he told me that Donald Trump was the real deal, that the deep state was after him, and that they were going to use anything necessary, including monstrous dirty tricks, to try to stop his progress in making America great again. And he actually predicted pretty much everything that happened. It was extraordinary, up to and including what Roger called Plan C, the attempted assassination of Donald Trump.
ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track. And ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. 3 couples, 4 vacations, a lot to unpack. Watch The 4 Seasons, a new series starring comedy favorites Tina Fey, Steve Carell, Will Forte, Coleman Domingo, and more in a hilarious and heartfelt love letter to long-term relationships. Based on the original Alan Alda film. Watch The 4 Seasons, streaming now only on Netflix.
Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic, famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere, nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. They ship Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garten's famous cakes. So if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT.
Faraday presenta Ojos con Alergia y Picazón contra el jardinero. Y el ganador es Faraday Extra Fuerte. Para aliviar la picazón de los ojos por alergia, actúa más rápido y supera Claritin y Flonase aún a las 24 horas. Faraday, adelante.
There you have it, Larry. I'm not. I stand by that. I said that because, based on my book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ, in which I documented the Secret Service's various actions on the day of Kennedy's assassination, which they very clearly violated their own regulations and stood down. The fact that they even took the motorcade through Dealey Plaza, violation of their protocols. The car comes to a full stop. The buildings within 300 yards of the car are not searched and sealed. Same thing we saw in Pennsylvania. The motorcycle officers are supposed to be on both sides of the presidential limousine, 6 of them. There's 1 motorcycle officer. He's ordered to ride behind the presidential limousine. The 2 Secret Service officers who are, by regulation, supposed to be on the rear bumper, as they were when JFK visited Miami, as they were when JFK visited Chicago, just in the days before going to Dallas. They were not there. So for these reasons, I realize that Donald Trump poses an existential threat to the ruling elite who've been running the country, and that this was very likely to happen. I guess my question to you, Larry, is it possible, as I fear, that it will happen again?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's a high risk, and therefore, but it's one that also can be stopped or curtailed with appropriate security practices and professional personnel. You know, the problem they had in Pennsylvania was the Secret Service was supposed to push the security perimeter out at least 500 yards, and in some instances 1,000 yards. It's always depends upon what the line of sight is out on the horizon. They didn't do that. They didn't even go out. They barely went out 100 yards, and the Crooks was clearly outside that perimeter. You know, that was the most egregious failure. But then, you know, the failure in communications, the failure to have proper leadership, the failure to have a proper tactical operations center, the failure to have integrated communications, the failure to properly brief the police and agree upon action plans for a variety of contingencies. I mean, we're cascading. We're not pointing to just one thing, one isolated problem. We are talking about a level of incompetence that, you might as well just grab somebody off the street and say, hey, we're putting you in charge of putting together the Secret Service plan today. I think the average person passing by on the street might have come up with a better plan than what the Secret Service did.
Folks, if you're just tuning in, we're talking to Larry Johnson. He is a former intelligence officer with the Central Intelligence Agency, also an intelligence analyst, and former planner and advisor to the U.S. State Department's Office of Counterterrorism. He's helping us break down a number of the vexing questions around the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. We've got more with Larry Johnson, so please keep your radio right there at 770 on the AM dial, or stay tuned in to us at WABCRadio.com. We'll be back with more of Larry Johnson. Also coming up, the last woman to debate Kamala Harris in a presidential debate. Tulsi Gabbard, the former Democrat congressman, joins us coming up on the Roger Stone Show. You're not going to want to miss that. We'll be right back.
It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC. It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back, folks. I'm Roger Stone. We're talking to Larry Johnson about the many troubling things we are learning about the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. I want to note that I, sorry to say, I saw the fact that Joe Biden would drop out. I said it publicly. I also have predicted that Kamala Harris would yet be president. Let's play that, if we may.
Now, as a veteran of many years in American politics, something somewhat shocking. Joe Biden will not be the nominee of the Democratic Party in 2024. Kamala Harris will briefly become president.
Now, I go on there to speculate that the potential for Michelle Obama, because I believe that the polls show, after this huge media buildup, but a closer examination of Kamala Harris as a candidate, she's trailing in the polls, that anything is possible at a Democrat convention in which nobody's bound by party rules or law, and Kamala Harris didn't win any delegates. So I still think I may yet be proven right about that. I do have a concern that some may think that the way to elevate Kamala Harris's candidacy is to have her replace Joe Biden after the Secret Service's involvement, or actions, I should say, in Butler, Pennsylvania. Pardon me for being suspicious. Larry, your thoughts?
Yeah, this I've been hearing for quite a while from other, let's call them insiders, that the plan was to replace Biden. And as you stated, to replace him ultimately with Michelle Obama. That Michelle reportedly had agreed to do so more than a year ago. But as with all plans, and you know this from your own experience, running political campaigns going back 40 years ago, that there can always be the unknown, the wild card that gets thrown in that can alter it. And even though Biden was being forced out by a prearranged plan, not one that he agreed to, by the way, but the powers that be were, and I believe Barack Obama was centered to a lot of this. Biden then derailed it by immediately endorsing Kamala and forcing everybody to jump on the Kamala train. And we've seen levels of gaslighting, and for folks not familiar with that phrase, gaslighting is when no matter what you see with your eyes and hear with your ears, you're going to be told that what you saw and heard didn't happen, that it's the exact opposite. So even though you've been watching a failing, demented Joe Biden for 3 years, growing increasingly worse, you were constantly being told that he was on top of his game and sharp as a tack and mentally alert and running rings around younger staffers, all lies. That became very apparent after the failed debate with Donald Trump. And then, so now we get introduced to a new level of gaslighting that here is Kamala Harris. If she was a man, she'd be the reincarnation of Jesus Christ. She must be the Holy Mother. She is walking on water. She is a policy maven. And oh, by the way, she was never border czar. Even though there's, written articles, videotape, film, etc., detailing that. So what we're witnessing is just the curtain is being pulled back on this charade that is known as the American democracy and the Democrat Party. That this is the ultimate group of insiders who are trying to dictate the outcome and try to overcome the will of the American people.
I noticed that the Secret Service was relatively quick to identify the shooter as Thomas Matthew Crooks. They also told us that he was a registered Republican, but beyond that, they told us that he had left no social media or net-based trail, that it seemed to just have been eliminated, erased. Now, interestingly, I learned that he did have a social media platform on Gab, which is a popular social media platform for those who are censored and canceled everywhere else. I have a profile there because I went through a period in which I was banned for life on X, which used to be Twitter, banned for life on Facebook, where I'm still banned for life. Folks, if you see a Roger Stone on Facebook trying to sell you crypto or offer you a job or asking for your financial information, no, that is not me. Also not on Instagram, where I'm also banned for life. But when you look at those the posts attributed to Thomas Matthew Crooks, they are pro lockdown for the COVID-19 vaccination, and they're pro Biden. If he is, it is possible to look at the current voter files to see that he is indeed a Republican, but what we don't know yet is when he became a president. I've had a tipster tell me that he only became a Republican to vote against Donald Trump for Nikki Haley. Until there's an update by the state that can tell us when he registered, we won't know whether that is true. But interestingly, other sources, some in the Pennsylvania state law enforcement, have told me that of the possibility that the shooter is one Maxwell Yurick. Yurick is a man who has a criminal record of having assaulted Trump supporters at 2 previous events in Pennsylvania, who has an affiliation with Antifa, who also seems to have virtually no social media footprint. I don't have facial recognition technology, nor am I an expert, but somehow a picture of the dead assassin leaked. That's a story in itself. We don't know who put that photograph out. To me, it looks a bit more like Yurick. But look, I'm not saying that Crooks is or is not the shooter, but he could be a patsy. I'm not saying that Yerrick is or is not the shooter, but as in the case of Lee Harvey Oswald, the government rushed to say that Oswald was the killer of Kennedy and that he acted alone. Now there's substantial evidence, which I published in my own book, that that's not the case. What are the chances here? A couple things, Larry. What are the chances are that perhaps Mr. Crooks is not the perp? Perhaps he didn't act alone. Perhaps there were other shooters. Ron Johnson did say on X, which used to be known as Twitter, that a government briefing told him that there was the possibility of more than one shooter, or that Crooks, the alleged shooter, had Confederates.
Yeah, let's start with what I think is pretty solid, which is that Crooks did not do this. He did not do this alone. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm saying there were multiple shooters at the scene. The problem I have with the multiple shooter theory is that when you look at the location where each of the people who were shot were standing, they were standing basically in alignment with the field of fire that corresponds to where the body of Thomas Crooks was found. So I think that in and of itself tends to dismiss that there were other shooters working with him. Because frankly, if there were multiple shooters trying to kill Donald Trump, I think Donald Trump would be dead and there would be a bunch of other dead people in the crowd. But fortunately, only one died, and Corey Campatori was sadly lost his life in that. But when you look at Crooks' behavior and his conduct, so he knows how to conduct surveillance. He knows how to pick out the right spot on the roof where he's not going to be visible to one of the Secret Service counter sniper teams. Is that just accidental good luck on his part? Or was that part of had he been trained to do some target surveillance by somebody else? He reportedly constructed 3 improvised explosive devices that were in his car, and apparently was going to detonate that car as part of a diversion attack to help aid his escape from the location. And we can't rule out that maybe he was deliberately killed to just keep him silent about who was helping him. The Heritage Foundation, they took availability of a public database on cell phones that you can pull up an address, and that address will show you what cell phones are located and operating at that address. And then you can trace those cell phones and see other places that they've gone, because advertisers use this information to target people. Well, lo and behold, they did that, and one of the cell phones that had been at that residence popped up literally a block from FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C., in Gallery Place. So, coincidence? Yeah, you reach a point where there are so many failures and so many other odd coincidences that you have to really seriously question that, yeah, this narrative that this was just some lone crazy kid just smells bad.
All right, I'm afraid we have to leave it there, which is a shame because I have so many more questions. I want to thank Larry Johnson, a former Central Intelligence Agency officer and intelligence analyst, for joining us today to talk about many of the troubling and still developing questions surrounding the attempted assassination of President Donald Trump. Larry, thank you for joining us today on The Roger Stone Show. And folks, don't go away because we'll be right back. Tulsi Gabbard plans to join us, the former Democrat Congresswoman and the last woman to engage Kamala Harris in a televised presidential debate. We'll be right back.